too. It feels gummy right now, but wow, right. Wow, that's pretty cool. Okay, and it's gone. Right. Hi, I'm Eve with The Baby's Booty, and in today's video, we are going to show you how you can do puff embroidery. All right, so I'm sure you're probably thinking, but Eve, we already did a video on puff embroidery, and you already showed us how we can do puff embroidery. You're right, I did. But in this instance, now you can do puff embroidery whether you have a puff embroidery design or not. As a matter of fact, this works with any embroidery design. All right, you don't have to have embroidery foam to go up under the design. You don't have to have a design that's digitized for puff embroidery. You just need a digitized design that has satin stitches for the best results, that is. But this embroidery process can be done with any embroidery design on any material as long as you can embroider on it and get it a little bit wet. But more on that later. Then you can do puff embroidery. All right, so let's get right into it. I've picked two projects that we're going to do today to show you just how easy it is to do puff embroidery. This is going to turn out to be an absolutely super cute, very simple project, and it is going to have that wow factor. So what we need to start out with is our 4x4 embroidery hoop. All right. We are going to be using the SE425 embroidery machine today. We are going to use Madeira thread. This is 1674. It's a nice icy blue color to go with our marine vinyl. We need a piece of marine vinyl, and as you see, this particular vinyl has iridescent glitter in it, so it will give us the background glittery effect of a snowflake. All right, then we're going to need our tearaway stabilizer. I got some scissors here to cut these down if I need to. And then I have the template for the snowflake that we're going to make. Although the colors are yellow and red in this picture, that's not what we're going to use. We're going to use the blue for where there's yellow and the red lines. We're not actually going to need to stitch that out because our marine vinyl already has the background effect. But if you had a plain fabric in the background and you wanted to put a pretty color in the background, you could use that field stitch, but we're not going to need that. We'll skip it with this specific project. And then finally, we will need our puff stuff. All right, so this is our puff stuff. It's in a Ziploc bag because we need to keep this free from moisture. And when we take it out, I'm going to show you, it basically looks just like felt. It looks and feels like a soft felt, okay? And this is our puff stuff. As you see, it's pretty thick. It has a thickness to it that you can feel, but you don't need to change anything about your embroidery design at all in order to stitch this design. So what we're going to do is we're going to cut this, all right? And now what I'm going to do is use this template to make sure that I cut this to the size that I need. So I'm going to start by cutting out my 4x4 template. I'm going to cut kind of close to the edge of the design, not completely super close. And with this particular project, the embroidery design will show me a placement stitch, so I don't necessarily have to line this up in the hoop. All right, we'll set that to the side. Now here is our snowflake cut out. So what I'm going to do is lay this on the surface of the puff stuff. Okay, so in laying it on there, I could use like some spray adhesive or something, but I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to hold it because I really don't know how spray adhesive will affect the puff stuff. Okay, and so let's cut this out. All right, and I could have probably used a pen or marker to get the shape. All right, so there's 1, 2, 3 sides that I've cut. Now I'm gonna put this back in the Ziploc bag, okay? Because I don't want any moisture to get to this at any time. So when you store this, keep it in its Ziploc bag, okay? Let the air out and set it off to the side. And now I'm going to finish trimming this in the shape that we're working with today. All right, so I'm going to actually save these little pieces because they will come in handy later. All right, so here we have our shape. Crude looking, but it's still the shape of our snowflake. Okay, so here is our design. Now I'm going to show you how this comes in handy by printing this out. And I printed this out using Sew What Pro. This Sew What Pro is the embroidery design editing software program that you can print out your embroidery design templates and be able to allow you to center it in the hoop. Also, it allowed me to shrink this a little bit because it was a little bit too big, so I wanted to shrink it down just a little bit, and I used Sew What Pro to do that. All right, so let's go ahead and hoop our stabilizer. With this particular project, we need our tearaway stabilizer, and here is my embroidery hoop. All right, so as you see, you can hear the drum. It's not super tight, but it's definitely tight enough to get the job done. So now that we have this, we can go ahead and get our embroidery machine threaded. So I'm going to go ahead and thread the embroidery machine. And as I mentioned, I am using a Madeira thread. My presser foot is up. Your presser foot has to be up when you're threading your embroidery machine. And take it behind this guide bar here and then up into the cutter, and that's that. We have an automatic needle threader on this particular machine. And so now our machine is threaded. Let's pull up the design, which is right here. It's the first one. And as you see, the first thing it's going to do is do a placement stitch to show me where I need to lay down my marine vinyl. Now, let's go ahead and put the hoop on the machine. And the marine vinyl is a little too big as well, so let's go ahead and cut this down some too. All right, just to make it easier on us. Okay. And there we have our marine vinyl cut out, our glitter vinyl. The bobbin is already in. I'm using a white bobbin. So I'm going to go ahead and press go and get this started. All right, so I'm going to use the same color thread for all of the stitches. All right, so I'm going to take this off so that you can see here is our placement stitch for our snowflake. And so this is where I'm going to lay the marine vinyl. Now notice I'm covering all of those stitches and making sure that all stitches are covered. And again, if your machine is okay with it, you can use some spray adhesive. You actually could even use a little bit of painter's tape to hold this in place. But our next stitch that's going to stitch out on this machine is going to be a tack down stitch. It's called tack down because it's going to tack this piece of marine vinyl down to the stabilizer to keep it from moving around as we finish the rest of our stitches. Okay, so let's let our presser foot down, go ahead and hit go. And we're going to make sure that this doesn't slide around any, which is of course what the painter's tape should do as well. All right, so let me take this off and show you. Now mine did shift a little bit, as you see the stitches did not hit this marine vinyl right in this little spot because I didn't double check. Now I also could have held it up to the light to see the stitches from the back, to see and make sure that it was covering all the stitches, but I didn't. So make sure you do that with your design so it doesn't mess up. But at this point, in putting this back on the embroidery machine, our next stitch that it's going to do is the fill stitch, the red part that we saw in our printout. Okay, so this red stitch in the background, we don't want that with this particular ornament that we're making, because glitter in the background is going to give us the effect in the background that we want, and we don't want any stitches in the background to cover that or to cover the glitter. All right, so we're going to skip stitch 3, and in order to do that, we're going to hit adjust. We're going to hit the middle button showing the needle plus and minus, and there's a spool of thread minus, spool of thread plus, needle minus, needle plus. So the needle minus and plus is skipping ahead, plus is going ahead stitches, minus is taking away a stitch per stitch, and the spool of thread is color stops. Okay, so I can go back one color stop to the second one by hitting the spool of thread minus, but I want to move ahead to this stitch right here. So I'm going to hit the plus button, and so now we're on color stop number 4. So I'm going to hit the back button just to go back out to the main stitch screen where we started. And it's calling for yellow because, of course, the way it was created is with the yellow, but we're not going to use yellow. We're using the blue. And at this point is where we want our puff embroidery effect to come into play with this particular design. So we need our puff stuff, right? And we cut this out, remember? So I'm going to take this off again. This time I'm going to make sure it's covering the stitches like it's supposed to be. All right, because I definitely want to make sure that this puff effect is being covered, or that the puff stuff is under all of the stitches that are going to stitch out on this particular design. And let's hope that it is. And now I can put some painter's tape. Again, I can put painter's tape to make sure that it doesn't move around, but I'm going to take a chance because I'm super excited about this. This isn't, you know, one of those things where you've seen it before and you know what's going to happen and all that jazz. Not in this instance. This is some new technology in the embroidery industry, and I'm really excited about it. So I'm kind of not rushing through it, but I want to see it work. And so this is my first time using the puff stuff. All right, so very first time. I watched a video on how it works and how to do it, but this is my first time doing it. Okay, so I'm doing this with you guys in this video. So I'm going to go ahead and stitch out color stop number 4. So the puff stuff is there. I didn't change anything with this embroidery design. It was not digitized for puff embroidery. This is just a regular embroidery design. Okay, so let's hit go, and it's shifted, so I'm going to move it down. And now it's going to stitch down some, and I'm hoping this was enough to cover everything. It looks like it is. And we're going to let this stitch. At this point, the embroidery has finished. So now that we're done with the embroidery part, let's take it off of the embroidery machine, lift our foot. And here is our embroidery design. So here is the glitter vinyl that we embroidered on. And as you see, here's the puff stuff. All right, so it's peeking out around a little bit. So it was out a little bit further over here. Hopefully it went under pretty good under there. And here's a little bit sticking out here. And then the puff stuff is all in the background covering our glitter vinyl. Okay, so this is tearaway stabilizer. So let's go ahead and take it out of the hoop. Easy. All right. So now what we're going to do is take it over to my desk. All right. So now that we're over at my desk, hopefully this camera will pick it up a little bit better. You'll see here is the glitter vinyl right here in the background of the embroidery design. Let's see. There you go. There's your glitter vinyl peeking out right there. And then the puff stuff is right in here. And as you see, here is the regular embroidery. Okay, it's not any very much distinction to it. It's plain embroidery. This was not designed for puff embroidery. All right, and let's get you at an angle so that you can see it's not really raised or anything. All right, so this is just snowflake design stitched out onto some glitter, holographic glitter marine vinyl with a layer of puff stuff under the embroidery stitches, but on top of the marine vinyl. That's it. That's all we did. That's all we did. And the tearaway stabilizer on the back. So if I wanted to, I could come back here and tear out, you know, the stabilizer off the back, but that's not important at this stage. So this is what we have. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set up the camera because what I have here is I have a bowl of lukewarm water. All right. And then I have a toothbrush. Okay. So he suggested that you get a brush to agitate the puff stuff just lightly, and you put it in the water, lukewarm water, not hot, definitely not cold, but lukewarm, and then that'll help dissolve this faster, just like it does with wash away stabilizer. Okay. All right, so I wanted to add a side-by-side visual so that you can see as we agitate the snowflake. Okay, so as we agitate this, and again, you see it's a flat embroidery design, but it does have the puff stuff up under it. And what we're going to do is put it in this bowl, and then we're going to use the toothbrush that's right here to agitate it. All right, and the reason for the side-by-side camera is that I was told that this is like going to be a complete wow situation. So I wanted to get an honest reaction from me on doing this, because I mean this is some pretty thick material that's on here. This puff stuff is kind of thick. Like I said, it puts me in the mind of a soft not flannel, but a soft what is the name of this stuff? The soft not fleece either. Well, it actually feels like fleece. It's about the same thickness of fleece, but at any rate, I mentioned what it was earlier. It'll come to me here in a little bit. But as we know, when we put water soluble stabilizer in water, it dissolves pretty quickly. So at any rate, let's quit delaying. We'll go ahead and put it in the water. Now again, this is marine vinyl. Let me move this over. This is marine vinyl with regular embroidery snowflake design, and this is puff stuff. up under it, and just a regular toothbrush and lukewarm water that's starting to cool off. So let's go ahead and put this in there. All right, and so he said to agitate it. Oh wow, okay. That toothbrush, it is, ew, it feels gummy right now, but wow, yikes. Wow, that's pretty cool. Okay, and it's gone. Yikes. Oh, it's a little bit gummy right there. Let's make sure. Or is that the marine vinyl? Oh, that's the vinyl. Okay. It's okay. Is there some right here on the edge? Let's get that off. And it's gone, y'all. This is crazy. I mean, I figured it would dissolve because water soluble stabilizer dissolves. But look at the look at the detail. This is regular embroidery, and I didn't have to. That's pretty neat. Nice. Oh, that's so cool. Okay, hold on. Let's get a this paper towel and blot this a little bit. Let's blot it. This is really neat. Okay, so there's a little bit of gummy there, so I need to get rid of that over here on the side. Oh, so neat, y'all. This is okay. So my that's so cool. My first reaction on this actually is how in the world. So it's look at how it did the embroidery, y'all. Check that out. Just that quick. Now again, this is not a puff embroidery design at all. No, not that's not what this is for. And it's just a plain old snowflake design on. Oh my gosh! And then look at the iridescent in the background of the marine vinyl. So what you could do with this is you could now just the snowflake thing. I'm gonna trim off this extra marine vinyl that I have that I didn't line up properly. All right, so that's all I'm doing is trimming off this extra vinyl so that it's closer rather to the edge of the snowflake. Okay, so here we have marine vinyl snowflake with puff embroidery, and I did not have to have a design digitized for puff embroidery or anything. So you could, put a ribbon at the top of this and hang it somewhere, like in your classroom or whatever for, it's the winter season, so the snowflakes are pretty, but that's just this particular application. This is a game changer for everyone, because a lot of the questions that I was getting with my last puff embroidery video was, where do you get puff embroidery designs, right? So like I have a puff embroidery alphabet available on my website that you can go and purchase, right? But that's just one alphabet. So imagine, let's stitch some lettering, and you don't have to have a puff embroidery design to do the lettering, and you can make it puff. You want to give it a shot? But you say, let's give it a shot. We'll do one more design. It won't be snowflake. Actually it will be snowflake. We'll do a face mask. We'll do a snowflake on this side, and we'll do a name on the other side, okay? And show you how it's just a regular basic embroidery design that you can make puff. Okay, give me a sec, let me get set up for it. So here is the tearaway stabilizer from the last project we just did. All right, so we're going to take this out of the hoop and throw this away, and you can save your template for if you were to do another snowflake like that in the hoop. Okay, so here we have our 4x4 embroidery hoop again. Then we have our blue thread up here. I'm going to use that same blue thread that I used before, And then I'm going to throw in some white, and I'm going to throw in some gray. And then here I have just a basic plain old face mask, and it's cloth. So the embroidery for the snowflakes will go on this side, and the name is going to go over here. And then we have our puff stuff. Yay! And then we need our tearaway stabilizer. So here is my tearaway. So I'm going to put that in. I'm not hooping the face mask. I'm just hooping the tearaway stabilizer for the time being. Okay? Like a drum. Alright, so we are going to take a ruler and we're going to lay it on those notches. Okay? So straight across from the small notch to the small notch. Okay? And again, here is the notch here beside the arrow on the outside of this hoop. And then down here is the notch that I'm talking about. Not that one, but this one here. All right, so we're going to line that up. And I'm just going to draw a straight line down my hoop. And then I'm going to do the same thing with these two notches here. This notch and that notch. And we're going to draw another line. All right, so now that we have our crosshairs, this is if you don't have your guide that came with this. Okay, so now that we have our crosshairs, I'm going to cut this out. And I'm going to match the lines of these crosshairs to the lines here on the hoop. See that? And that is how we will see where to lay the mask, how far down we need to lay the mask in order to have it stitch in the right place on the mask where we want the design to be. All right, so here is the mask, and this is actually pretty big design. And actually, what I'm also going to do to help myself is, just in case this mask moves, I'm going to mark the mask I'm going to put a mark here. All right, and then I'm going to put a mark up here where it lines up with the grid. Okay, and then a mark right here so that I'll know how to line it back up. I'm going to put a pin here. And then I'm going to put a pin here. Now, ordinarily, I don't suggest that you use pins because your pins could hit the embroidery needle, but notice when I line this up, the pin is up here where there is no stitching, and this pin is way over here out of the way. So when it does come to do the stitching, it should not hit the pins. All right, so then our next step is putting this on the embroidery machine and getting it started. All right, so now that we have it pinned in place, let's go ahead and put it on the embroidery machine so that I can point something else out to you. If you notice on our template, here's the template of the embroidery design that we're going to do. And as I mentioned, these ones that are just running stitches, those aren't made for the puff embroidery. Your satin stitches are the better options, which we have 3 of those. Now, if you take a look, here's a scrap from off of the snowflake that we did earlier, and it will fit right over that particular snowflake. So keep your scraps. All right, you keep your scraps, then you can use them to do your smaller embroidery pieces. All right, so I have the embroidery design loaded on the embroidery machine, and what we're going to do is go ahead and start the design. Our next stitch, we're going to go ahead and do our white color thread. And now our first snowflake over here, we need to use our puff stuff, because this is going to be a satin stitch snowflake. Okay, so we put a presser foot down, and like I said, this is the first one. So after it finishes the first one, and we will stop the machine, trim the puff stuff, and we'll let it keep on going. Okay, so I stopped it since we're done with the larger snowflake with all of the satin stitches. So I'm going to take this off and show you. All right, so you see all the satin stitches, and of course down here I missed these satin stitches, but that's okay. This is for me. I'm not super worried about it, but after I cut this away, I'll show you. So I'm going to trim this carefully to make sure I don't cut any of these satin stitches, but getting my extra scrap because I don't want to lose any of that. But if I had just used my template and lined it up back on the mask, then that would have shown me just how far down those stitches were going to go. But that's okay. We're going to move forward now, and we are going to get into our next stitches. So here's this color, so it's going to go over here and do these other stitches to add to it. So let's put this back on and let it finish the white thread stop, or thread stop number 3. Alright, so we are done with the third color stop. Now we're going to the fourth. Now this is going to start with this color snowflake, so we need our puff stuff here, and just to get a good feel for where it's going to be, this is pretty decent size, so I'm going to put that right there, and then we'll let it rip. Now, while this is stitching out, I want to go ahead and point out some facts about the puff stuff. Okay, so the puff stuff you can purchase. It's in 1 yard lengths. So you can purchase it by the yard, and it is to be used almost like a topper. Whatever embroidery, satin stitches are best, that you want to have some 3D effect to, you want to lay the puff stuff down before you stitch those specific satin stitches. That's one of the things you need to know about the puff stuff. The other thing you need to know is this doesn't need to go on something that's going to be laundered, okay? Laundered a lot. So hats, bags, keychains, totes, anything of that magnitude would be perfect for this puff stuff, okay? Now in this instance, yes, I'm using a face mask, but that's just to show you how designs that are pretty small can even benefit from this puff stuff embroidery material. Under normal circumstances, small stitches generally wouldn't work in puff embroidery by using the puff foam up under it. But with the puff stuff, you can even do small satin stitches and get that 3D effect that you're looking for in a puff design format. Denim jackets, yes, you can use for that, because in most instances, people don't launder their denim jackets on a regular basis. If you can embroider on it, you can use the puff stuff with it, okay? So the face mask is finishing up that bigger snowflake down there, and as soon as it slows down and stops, I'm going to stop it and trim away the extra puff stuff so that the rest of the embroidery designs can stitch out on there. Your next question might be, where do I get puff stuff? Well, the link is in the description below, but you can get it from John Deere's Embroidery Legacy website. Right now, it's 1 yard by 40 inches for $24.95. All right, so let's go and change it. And all I'm doing is trimming away the extra puff stuff material so that I can have scraps to use for any other smaller projects that I'm going to do with the puff stuff in the future. I'm giving room to the other embroidery that we'll be doing here shortly, the other snowflakes, to make sure that they have space to embroider without getting on the puff stuff. Okay, so that's the only reason why I'm trimming it right now. So we'll go ahead and let this finish out that color stop. Now our last snowflake of that color stop has completed. So let's go back to the embroidery machine, get our last snowflake stitched in, the smallest of the puff snowflakes. Then we'll put our name on the mask. We are going to lay down the last scrap of puff stuff for this final snowflake. All right, our design is done on this side. So let's lift our presser foot, take off our mask, and you can see we have the puff stuff under the embroidery parts that have satin stitches. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and unpin, take the pins out and tear away stabilizer. So I'm going to tear this out. Now that we have stitched this side, now this is just regular embroidery design. So I was going to put my name on the other side, but what I'm actually going to put on the other side is the word snow somewhere on the mask. All right, just to show you that you can even use the built-in fonts and designs in order to get you a puff effect. Let's go to our main screen and hit A, B, C, and the first one is, these are satin stitch lettering, and I'm going to go with the medium size, and I'm going to get the word snow, so SNOW. So I'm going to pin this back down. And again, this is up higher, up out of the way. So that the needle doesn't hit that. Now, I'm not sure how far down this is going to go. So I'm going to not pin it down here anywhere, okay? Because I don't want my needle to accidentally hit the pins in this thing. So let's put this back on the embroidery machine. Now remember, I'm just using the font that's built into the embroidery machine, and I'm going to cut another piece of puff stuff to go under this regular normal embroidery font that's built into the machine. It's not made for puff stuff. You can't see that at all. I'm going to go ahead and get the lukewarm water going for us to rinse off the puff stuff. Now again, because as you'll soon see, it can work under such small satin stitch column, you can save just the teeniest of scraps to fit into areas where you want your puff embroidery to be. All right, we're done. So let's take this off. It turned out super pretty, just very simple. And I'm going to trim away the extra so that I can save these scraps. Now the small scraps, keep them. Alright, and there we're done. So let's tear this off because this is tear away. And so now we're going to put this in our water, agitated with our toothbrush, and see if we can get some puff embroidery out of our puff stuff. All right, let's see if this works. So here we have our bowl of lukewarm water. We have snow on one side and our snowflakes on the other. All right, so let's go ahead and we'll just dip the busier side first. Okay, so I'm just gonna put this right here in this water, and notice immediately it starts to dissolve. Okay, and as you see, it's kind of frothing a little bit. I think that's the that's the stuff dissolving. And you see how it's got like, there you go, you can kind of see the goo there, but it is dissolving. And this is a face mask, so it's not a bad thing for it to be in the water. Now the one thing I will say with this doing this method is you will need to let this dry before the customer can get it. So this isn't going to be a quick turnaround type situation unless you have a way to blow it dry for the customer. But aside from that, let's go ahead and do this since it already got wet a little bit. Wow, just that quick. See that? Just that quick. Barely had it in here. I don't know why it's frothing like that with this toothbrush. I don't know what I got on this toothbrush, but there's no detergent in here at all. So, all right. So now we have 3D effect with our embroidery. You can see that it's now raised. Even the snowflakes over on this side, they're puff. As you see, the puff is there. Look at that on this face mask, right? So this is just regular embroidery designs, okay? And even Look at the difference between this snowflake and this one. This is the one that we put the puff stuff up under. And you remember right here, I missed putting the puff stuff up under, but the rest of the snowflake is raised. You see that? And look at this one. This one is like, go this way. This one here is just, look at that. That's absolutely just phenomenal. And even this little teeny one, the little small one is even puff. All right. So yes, you can do puff embroidery. And look, don't forget, we did this one, and this is with the font that is built into the embroidery machine. How flipping cool is that? That is just amazing. That is amazing. So here on this channel, we do a live on Sundays. All right, today is Saturday. I'm filming this on Saturday evening. So I'm going to post this video for those who can't make it to the live. But if you can make it to the live tomorrow night, we go live 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. All right, 9 p.m. And what we'll do is we will do another puff project live so that you can see it while it's going on. No editing, no nothing, even though there's not much editing going on with this particular video, but that way you can see it as it unfolds. You can watch it as well. So I'm super excited, you guys. This is amazing. This is a game changer for those who want to do puff embroidery, but you don't even have to buy a puff embroidery design. You can use any embroidery design as long as it has the satin stitches. That's the best option out there, is the satin stitch. And then wherever the satin stitch is, if you want it puff, you just lay the puff stuff down, stitch the satin stitches over the top of it, and there you have puff embroidery. All right, you saw it with your own eyes. Now again, the puff stuff it's best to use on something that's not going to be washed regularly, because you saw I washed or used the toothbrush, agitated it. So I don't know what effect this will have if you keep washing this. Like, will it eventually wash it away? I don't know. But for the time being, I do know that if I have this and I use it on something like that snowflake where it's not going in the washing machine anymore, or a ball cap where it won't be in the washing machine, then your puff will be there. All right. So join us tomorrow to watch a live demonstration. Also, if you have any questions, drop them in the comments below. I'll try and answer all of the questions that I may not have covered here in this video so that you can do puff embroidery yourself. The link to purchase it is in the description below. It is at John Deere's Embroidery Legacy. It is sold in 1 yard lengths, 40 inches wide. Right now it's on sale, $24.95, and the price will go up later, but for right now it's $24.95. So go ahead and grab you some while you can, and please be sure to go into the Hoop group on Facebook to show off the embroidery puff that you do with this product when you get it. Okay, so thank you for joining us on this video showing how you can do puff embroidery.